is Swizz with Level Up Mental Health. Hopefully, we're having a good week here for watch the stream. If you're watching on YouTube, again, thank you for watching this. Make sure to like, subscribe. Got a solid skill here related to grounding that we're going to dive into. So, from the last video, last kind of discussion that we talked about, we were talking about kind of expanding the window of tolerance. What we're trying to do from that is, especially if we're experiencing the intense emotion that we're having, we want to try to be able to do the skills to reduce that intensity, and that's where kind of grounding comes into play. The last video too, we talked about being able to look at what the DBT scale of emotional intensity was, and I know I still have to do kind of a video on that, but what we're going to go into this next topic here about grounding. The goal is to reduce kind of the intensity of that emotion that we're experiencing. So we're in that red range, that crisis management skill. This is where grounding is going to come into play. Okay, so let's take a look at the worksheet here as we go through this, and we'll talk about the different types of grounding. We'll talk about some things we could do, some certain skills, and hopefully there's some here that will work out for you if you need it. So let's head to the worksheet. Oops, on the wrong one here. So all right, give me one sec. Here we go. Okay. My mistake. Here we go. Grounding. So what is grounding? So what grounding is that it's a great way to help us detach from the emotional pain that we're experiencing. So emotional pain can be defined as things like flashbacks, intrusive memories, self-harm impulses, the anger, the sadness, all that we're in that kind of intensity level that we're experiencing there. So grounding brings us back into that particular reality. The reference I always like to share is that if you've kind of used, or if you ever seen Inception, where they have the kind of the totems that they have to kind of bring themselves back into knowing if they're not in a dream anymore. That's kind of what we're trying to do here with grounding. Is we're trying to be able to anchor ourselves back into that particular reality, kind of even physically and metaphorically putting our feet on the ground so that we feel we're able to just kind of tether ourselves there, right? To kind of remind ourselves, hey, we're here, we're okay. Okay, so that's the whole goal, and the whole purpose of this again is be able to kind of regain control of those emotions that you're feeling, because again, controlling emotions can be very difficult. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of time to be able to do it. Not saying it's impossible, but the more that we're able to practice it, we're able to kind of get ourselves back into that reality, which is what we're trying to do. So here's some kind of general guidelines about grounding, and for us to kind of be mindful of as we're going through this. So when we're doing this, it can be done anytime, any place, anywhere, and even no one really has to know about it. And we're using this when we're feeling with a trigger, feeling enraged, disassociating, having substance cravings, or whenever emotional pain goes above a 6. And we talked about that DBT scale of emotional intensity. So being able to do this, things like keeping your eyes open, scanning the room, turning lights on, kind of stay in touch with the present, and rate your mood. I always do this with my clients, especially kind of at the sessions. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, where are you currently right now? Where would you say you are? And if they get to kind of like an 8 or a 9, we work on doing these grounding techniques. We kind of bring ourselves back into this reality here. And it really is helpful to kind of get to where you need to get to. What's important about this is that if there's things that you want to work on, let's say kind of the past, or maybe look at the trauma from the past, if you feel you're in the state currently, you're not going to be able to do that because of the fact that you need to decrease the intensity of emotion first, and then we could do those kind of processing exercises to kind of tackle maybe the past that's influencing or kind of presenting these emotions that you're experiencing here, right? So other kind of guidelines, talking about the negative feelings or journal writing. The goal is to distract away from these negative feelings, not get in touch with them. And I think that's a big part as well too, because the goal, this is where kind of your distractions are key in that place. And we'll kind of talk about that here in a sec. We want to stay neutral. We want to be focused on the present and the past, or not in the present or past. I'm sorry. Focus on the present and not in the past or future. I cannot talk. And we want to know that the grounding is not the same as relaxation training, because grounding, you're much more active, you're focusing on distractions, and it's being able to reduce kind of those negative feelings that you're experiencing right now. Okay? So there's three kind of categories that focus on areas to ground. We can look at mental grounding, we can look at physical grounding, and soothing grounding. So mental grounding means you're focusing on your mind, and physical is on your senses. And soothing is being able to kind of treat yourself in that kind way. Certain things where maybe you are kind of utilizing the senses there, but they're a way to kind of reduce those feelings that you're having. So what's important to understand is, and why there are so many, is because if you feel you're often using one pretty frequently, it may not be as effective, right? So let's say that you're like, oh, I tried to do deep breathing, and I kept doing deep breathing. It hasn't worked. It might be the time to kind of switch it up, right? The whole goal here of when you're building your mental skills is really to develop a tool belt, and the more tools that you have that can be interchanged when you are experiencing kind of any particular crisis, the more effective it's going to be, right? So let's look at kind of the things we could do for mental grounding here. The first one, we have describe your environment in detail. So you're looking at this here, like, oh, there's balloons in the back, there's a window up top, I have a cat over here, and as you're even just kind of saying that, you could see how your mind is shifting to that, right? Because you're pointing it out, and your brain's kind of like picking up on it and trying to process it, which is distracting you from that intense feeling that you're having, right? Play a categories game with yourself. Try to think of dog types, jazz musicians, states that begin with the letter A. Things that you feel are in your wheelhouse. Use a category for that because it will be helpful to distract you from what you're trying to do. Do an age progression. So feel like you're kind of 9, now you're 10, and just kind of focus on what that age is like. Describe an everyday activity in detail. So describing a meal. I always like kind of like if you're making a PB&J, what you need to do that. First, you got to get the bread, okay? Then you got to pick out the jelly and pick out the peanut butter. Then you got to get the knife to kind of spread the stuff with, right? So being able to bring that out is key there. From that, kind of use imagery. Imagery is good. Be able to kind of there's one that's you can think of yourself as like a leaf floating down the stream. Things like that is helpful. Safety statements are key. The more things that you can say, things to help kind of remind yourself to stay in the present is big as well. Read something saying each word to yourself is big as well too. Is big. I cannot talk. Is big as well too. Humor. Think of something funny. Kind of joke to yourself is a good way to do it as well too. And count to 10 or say the alphabet very slowly. Again, the whole goal that we're trying to do is distract ourselves from that intense feeling that we're having. Now, what's important to understand is that when you're doing these, it may not be, or it may not be kind of the main goal that you're trying to reach, right? And at the end of the day, you don't want this to be kind of a habit in that sense, meaning in the sense that if you feel whenever you're experiencing negative feelings that you are doing these things, right? Which is fine, but that's when the goal is to focus on kind of those deeper sort of experiences that's leading to these intense feelings. Being able to do grounding is kind of like that safety net response, right? Like you're trying to do these things to get yourself back in the present, so then you have the ability to work on focusing on the future and focusing on the past, right? We want to handle what is in front of us right now, and in order to get to the past, we need to focus on the present. Okay? So, next category here is the physical grounding. So, the temperature control, we talked about tip is kind of a good way to do that. Touching various objects, digging your heels into the floor, carrying grounding object, that we kind of relate that to Inception again. Jumping up and down, stretching, walking, eating, focusing on breathing, yada, 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 all that stuff. If you can physically kind of get into that area, get into that space, it helps with that distraction as well too. Last category here is the soothing. So things like kind statements, as if you're talking to a small child. Think of favorites, picture people you care about, remember a safe place, say a coping statement, plan a safe treat for yourself. Think of things you're looking forward to the next week. So certain things that are good for this as well too, especially like the safe treat is like, there was like a I've seen objects where it's like a kind of I guess a joke sort of thing or whatever, but it's a glass box and it has a candy bar inside. It's like, oh, smash this during an emergency or something. So that's always kind of like, in a way, kind of make sure you're having those self-soothing strategies for that is key. Okay. So, what if it doesn't work? And we kind of touched about this a little bit. And a lot of that is obviously is practice, right? The more that you're able to do it, the easier it may come by. Um, the other things to do is that we want to do it for a long time, so doing it over and over and over can help kind of be able to kind of really embed it in you. Like I was saying too, the more that you're able to have multiple tools, the better that you are being able to handle that intensity. Create your own methods. If you can kind of be able to personalize your grounding experience, the more effective it's going to be. Help others, prepare in advance, create a voice memo. All these things are helpful to kind of practice. But at the end of the day, what you want to establish is what you feel is going to be impactful to you, right? If you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I want to try to go through all these skills and see if it works, yeah, it may be helpful. But the goal is to really personalize it. And the more that you can kind of think of things like going back up to like the categories, right? If there's like an anime or cartoon show or whatever it is that you feel you really kind of are really just invested in, that can really help you deal with those intense emotions that you're feeling, right? So think of kind of your grounding strategies. Think of where, again, when you feel you might need this, and what would be kind of your plan of attack. And the more you're able to develop that toolbox, the more effective it's going to be. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. Again, it takes practice, it takes time, and the more they're able to do it, the more effective it's going to be. So thank you. We'll be back here with Psychonauts. If you're watching the stream, gonna dive into it. Just had to knock out a few coping skills. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get set up here, and then we'll be able to hang out and play for a bit. So finally, hopefully, we'll finish it. But thank you.